John Hebron, Bob Simonski, Superintendent of Schools.
I'm Jane Young, the business manager.
If we could all rise to the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'd like to begin the purpose of tonight is to present the 2015-16 regional budget. At this time, Dr. Simonski will come forward and make the presentation shortly thereafter. If anyone would like to address the board at that time, any public comments, we encourage you to do so. We have a microphone set up here so you can move forward. So, Dr. Simonski, if you would like to get started, I'd like to invite the board members maybe to come down into the scene so we can watch the presentation. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to present the 2015-16 Region 8 Green Budget. I think that as we began the process of budget development, one of the things that we did was we set certain goals for ourselves. We wanted to continue the depth and level of every program within the school. That's important, and it's helped our graduates as they left Rham and went on to further their education. We needed to address all the statutory requirements that were out there, special needs, education reform. We needed to continue to implement the Common Core, continue teacher evaluation, and fund certain capital improvements. Those were the goals of the budget going forward. Then if you look at the proposed budget of $29,165,000, there are some offsets in the budget. I need to remind you that the budget this year was budgeted gross, and then we would take the offsets from the various categories in which we receive revenue. So that there were a total of $941,000 in budget offsets, and we'll speak to those in a moment. We had some budget reductions of about $80,000 and new initiatives for about $23,000, and that gave us a 5.12% increase. I think that the initiatives that were contained in the budget this year are a laptop initiative, and the one to put a laptop in, and a laptop available for each eighth grader. We wanted to make the school to career council full-time, and because of the laptop initiative, we needed to make the desktop technician full-time, and we needed to increase the hours in the accounting office as directed by our auditor, and to create the position of special education department head in the middle school. Then the reductions going forward in the budget, we were going to reduce the speech language pathologist and reduce 2 special education counters. That gave us a total savings of about $880,000. Looking at the budget, you can see that about 66% of the budget is salaries, another 10% benefits. You can see the cost of the bonds, transportation, tuition, utilities, and fuel. So that's the way the budget is broken down, and you can see we're an employee-rich organization as any education organization would be. Looking at the budget climate, I think that it's no secret the number of houses for sale, the level of bonding, budget increases over the past 2 years, state aid unknown at this time, and of course we refunded a set of bonds that were issued in 2007. And mindful going forward with the referendum statistics. You can see the votes in each of the towns, the positive and the negative votes on the budget. So we remember this going forward with the budget. And the history of the budget increases, you can see where we were from 2009-10 to the current 5.12. So that increases over the past years. There's a continuing appropriations that are part of this budget. One of them is $100,000 for a school resource officer. The other one is $100,000 to complete certain maintenance projects. Those are projects that the building needs because of its age and it's beginning to show that it's 10 years old. The results of the bond refinancing, you can see that we refunded about $3,980,000. And you can see the savings over the next 2 years. Those were savings that were agreed to by the board and they have not been applied as of yet. Special education, you can see that the tuition and transportation in special education are increasing, and those are costs that are related to the needs of the students who have been placed out of district, whose needs we can't address in the district, and then transportation for those children. We also had some increases in transportation. We had a group of parents who petitioned to go to Glastonbury Vocational Agricultural School. In the past, we've provided mileage to the parents, but this past year, parents produced a quota and we were forced to put another bus on to transport those 4 students to Glastonbury Ag. Next, vocational transportation, we had to add an extra bus, not because of the number of students, but because of the location of students. We would have had some bus runs that would have been extremely long, and the students would have had to board the bus between 5:15 and 5:30 if we didn't add this extra bus. Textbooks, we're looking to purchase $37,000 worth of math textbooks for the middle school. We're looking at some science textbooks for the high school and world language textbooks. Those are the textbooks that are in the budget that was originally requested by the department heads. Operations and maintenance. I think that one of the things here is that the amount of fuel that we burned over the past couple of years has increased dramatically just because of the change in climate. We have to heat the maintenance garage, and we're using propane for cooking and a hot water heater here at the high school. Snow plowing, this year was a very difficult winter. We spent about $53,000 on plowing snow just because of the amount of snow that fell this year. Going further, included in the budget, a tractor, John Deere tractor, to replace one that's about 12 years old. Paint striper, this is the machine that's used to put lines down on the competition fields, and a vacuum to pick up the grass clippings. Health insurance, I think it's important to note that all the teachers in Rham are part of the high deductible health plan. This is a result of collective bargaining. In the past year, with that savings, we realized a savings of about $36,000 in health insurance. Impact of the contracts, you can see that the certified staff received a 2.8% increase with no step next year. The administrators will be on a 1.9%, and the non-certified are currently in negotiations. Technology, what we did is continued our 5-year rotation of machines in the school, including teacher laptops and those laptop carts. We wanted to put in we proposed a one-to-one computing devices for grade 8, and because of the increase in number of computers, we're asking that the desktop technician go to full-time from part-time. Fuel costs, I think that you can see how this has changed. In 14-15, we burned about 110,000 gallons, and we're estimating to burn the same amount in 15-16. So again, it was consumption, not price. Athletic budget, you can see the budget request is for about $528,000. And these are the offsets that we were talking about earlier. You have a user fee offset of about $105,000, gate receipts of about $7,900, leaving the net cost of the athletic program to be about $450,000. Club advisors, these are positions, the stipend of which is governed by the collective bargaining agreement. The total budget request is $117,000 for these programs, and we collect user fees from the students who participate in these clubs of about $9,900, giving the net request to be about $107,000. School choice. This is an area that has impacted the budget. You can see the number of students leaving the district has declined. Numbers going to magnet schools declined from 79 to 67. And then you can see the numbers going to Glastonbury, OAG, Lebanon, OAG, and New Tech. So those are the students who leave the district. The final financial impact of school choice. You can see the vocational agricultural tuition and the tuitions for the magnet schools. And you can see that the tuitions to the magnet schools have decreased over in the upcoming budget. The projected enrollment at the middle school, we're looking at an increase of about 12 students, and this is based on the NESDAQ information and the information compiled by the principals. Looking at the high school enrollment, we will lose about 10 students, and you can see how the high school enrollment has changed over the past years. Special education enrollment, you can see 14-15 compared to 15-16, and we're expecting an increase in special education students. You can see the play students and the number of special education students coming into the middle school. So that's going to have an impact in our budget. Special education prevalence rate, I think this is important to take a look and see how we compare to other districts, to take a look at possible over-identification. And you can see the state average, we're very close to the state average, and you can see how some of the surrounding communities compare to the special education prevalence rate. The special education expenditures, you can see that the federal assistance in special education is about 10%, with the local being about 60%. You can see how the state has contributed only 30% of the cost. So you can see that the cost of special education is largely borne by the local communities. The excess cost grant, I think that this is important because this is another area of offset in the budget and an area which we receive considerable resources from the state. You can see that in fiscal 10, 11, 12, and estimating 13 is going to be level funded. That has implications because when you look at the number of students being identified, you look at the cost of those students, the pot that is allocated to each student becomes smaller because they're more expensive and there are more students. So you can see the history of special education over the past 3 years is going from $434,000 to $392,000. One of the things that we've had to do this year because of the estimates, we're projecting the excess cost to be returned to us at a 70% level. In the past, we used 75%, simply because there was more money to be distributed among the LEAs. Taking a look at education expenditures, you can see state, federal, local, and you can see how the state is 42% and local is 51%. So that the local districts, or local towns, bear the lion's share of the cost of education. The ECS grant, this is another offset contained in the budget. And the ECS grant is given to the towns where it does not receive, ECS funding, but a portion of that ECS funding is used essentially to pay the cost of high school students. And you can see how ECS stacks up by town. Looking at non-revenue grant sources, pay for play, gate receipts, interest, and rental income. I think that it's interesting to note, interest income back about 5 years ago, that was about $250,000. Now it's just because interest rates being flat, it's you can see where we are with interest rates. We've just about collected $3,000 this year. Looking at state grants, the adult education grant, transportation, excess costs, as we've stated. Personal finance course, that was a course that was sponsored by the state. We put in place, and it's no longer funded by the state. And then you can see the total of the grants coming to the district. Federal grants, Title I, Title II, IDEA. This is an important, IDEA is an important special education grant because it significantly reduces the cost of special education and is the prime federal aid to special education. Perkins vocational grant, we're able to purchase supplies to keep certain classrooms going. You can see the total of the grants over the next the 2-year period. Average per pupil expenditure, and you can see how we compare to the other members of the district. You can see Region 8 is about $12,000. You can see how the other towns stack up to Region 8. The average per pupil expenditure, again, looking at it a different way, taking a look at other school districts in the area, both in Colchester, Lebanon, and P.O. Smith. So you can see how we compare to them. And looking at our student achievement and our cost per pupil, I think it's a favorable comparison. The proposed budget increase is $1,375,000, or about 5.12%. To take a look at it another way, you can see where the students stack up from each of the towns and the percent of the levy that goes to each of the towns and the number of students. And you can see we've done it for all three towns for 13, 14, 14, 15, and 15, 16 proposed. Again, Andover's, the impact of the budget on Andover is about $149,000. The impact of Hebron is about $655,000. And the impact on Marlboro is about $575,000. So again, this is the budget. We're looking at a budget of $28,266,000, or an increase of 5.12% over the previous year's budget. And that concludes my presentation.
That brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is public comments. At this time, if anyone would like to address the board regarding the budget, please do so. We have two microphones. Is there one side in the back? Okay. Well, if you can come down and state your name and town, we appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. No, that's fine.
Good evening. I'm Kathy Marlboro, First. We have a letter here to present to the grant board members.
Sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
Good evening. Here's success. Technology is great when it works. Once again, I'm Catherine Gudinski, Marlboro First Selectman. I have a letter here to read to the Board of Education regarding the budget. First of all, I'd like to just say, please accept this letter as an appeal by the Marlboro Board of Selectmen on behalf of our taxpayers in town to take the necessary steps to hold the Rham RAM budget increase for fiscal year 2016 as low as possible. We fully appreciate the pressures in attempting to craft a reasonable budget. The advent of the Common Core Initiative, additional state mandates, special education, increases in costs for a host of supplies and services, and a third consecutive year of flat funding from the state all create a difficult situation. Marlboro's situation is doubly difficult. In addition to the direct cost of any RAM budget increase, we are being further impacted by the change in the RAM levy due to the student population shift. All three member towns are experiencing a decline in student population. As a result, Marlboro's percentage of the RAM levy is increasing, which further boosts our share of the RAM budget. Historically, levy increases have resulted from population growth, not from a decline in the number of students. Levy percentage increases from a decline is a new phenomenon. Marlboro has a history of generous support for education and has consistently approved RAM budgets by a significant margin. In the last several years, we have been able to hold overall town budget increases to manageable amounts, avoiding voter rejection. This year may well be a different story. The best of circumstances is likely to still require a tax increase for Marlboro taxpayers of well over 4%, and the more likely scenario is between 5 and 6.5%, which is approximately over 2 mils. The RAM budget rise, further exacerbated by the levy adjustment, is by far the largest driver of our town budget. Combining this year's RAM budget and next year's proposed RAM budget, Marlboro's increase amounts to more than $1 million in a 2-year period. We understand you have for your consideration a set of revisions which would result in an increase on the order of 3%. While we cannot be certain, we believe Marlboro voters, when provided with justifying data, might support an increase in that range. Higher amounts are very likely to sharply boost the chance of rejection. Our experience with rejected budgets is that almost without fail, the subsequent budget proposal must be lower to be approved. Please do everything possible to keep the requested increase in the 3% range. Multiple referendum votes are costly, divisive, and very likely to ultimately result in less funding for our schools. We fully understand the difficult task you face and appreciate the time and effort you have invested. Please do everything possible to bring forth a budget that voters will support. I thank you for your efforts, and I understand how difficult it is. We're all facing that. But at this point, we are proposed the Marlboro Board of Selectmen to the Marlboro Board of Finance a 6.4% tax increase, which is slightly over 2 mils. And that amount was before we received the new RAM amount, which is the 5.12%. We were at the original number. We were not advised of the newer number. So when we went to our Board of Finance, we were not able to provide the correct number at that point in time. Thank you. And I have copies.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Anyone else like to ask about this? Yes, please continue.
Hi, my name is Linda. I'm chairman of the Marlboro Board of Finance, and hopefully you got the letter that I forwarded to the board and you had a chance to read it. Of course, reiterating what Kathy said, complete agreement with her. It's going to be a very difficult year in Marlboro, and the Board of Finance has been having special meetings to talk about our budget, and some of the things that are being discussed, decreasing our budget, are going to have significant impacts on our town. Our local Board of Education right now is at a 2.91% increase, and there's discussions of bringing that budget down by at least $100,000. Rham doesn't cut their budget, it's going to have most likely even more significant cut to the local Board of Education. We're also discussing possibly cutting out one of our town troopers. We have two, we're cutting out one, so you can see that it's a dire state right now, which is why we're asking
That's the last, right?
Now, I listen to both Hebron, I'm also a member of the Board of Finance in Hebron. And I'm here tonight to talk to you about a couple of things. And one may sound like I'm asking you to spend more money, and certainly not this year. But one of the things that's troubled us in Hebron over the last several years is the fact that capital projects are not being funded or are not being funded at the rate that they need to be funded. We did hear tonight, Dr. Sininsky, that there is some money in there for capital. However, there were no details as to what those capital projects are going to be. Last year, this board put in place a process to have a formal CIP, capital improvement program, in place and funding either one or two projects. I think it was about $58,000. I didn't hear anything about that for this coming year. The issue with this building being 12 years old, things are going to break. When this building was built, it was never properly sized in terms of the cost of maintenance. The board should have been putting money away over the years to maintain the facility in the grounds. That's not your fault when folks were around the building was open. However, I think this is an issue that needs to be addressed. I think that every one of the towns has a stake in this, and I think at this point, based on the numbers that I hear floating around, there needs to be some discussions beyond this board with every town as to how we make a plan to fund this. The other piece of that is every year we hear about how, and it kind of goes hand in hand, and if you don't have the money, you can't fund things, but we hear every year about how District 8 is the lowest in per pupil cost. Well, numbers are available in the state that also show in per pupil cost that District 8 is also the lowest in what they spend on their facilities. Non-incoming police, 3% in the most recent numbers that are available on the state website. 9.3% of the Rham budget is spent on the facility, and that includes, that's not just capital projects, that's total facility costs. Where if you look at all the other regions that are in the group, the secondary region school districts, they're up in the 12, 13, 14 range. So I think if you took those dollars and added it on, you'd also see our per pupil cost come up. Lastly, was one other thing. They can wait.
Thanks, Bob. Would anyone else like to address the board?
I just wanted to add one more thing. We've been having a lot of questions, both for the local Board of Education as well as questions about Rham, about the decrease in numbers of students. And there is, we have seen a decrease in the number of students, and as you look over the last 5 years, there's been a significant decrease in the number of students. And a lot of people are asking, why are we having all these decreases, and how many students are attending school, and those decreases in also been reflected as well by the student decline. So I didn't get to mention that, I just wanted to mention there's a lot of questions surrounding that. And as you look over the years, the histories of the number of students has significantly declined. And I've been around a long time, and I've heard a lot of budgets saying we have to increase because we have so many more students. And there's just been a lot of questions, and I'm not sure how to answer those people when we ask those. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take back. I apologize. I'm not like this. The last question we have is, as the board of finance met last week in Hebron and worked through our budget breaks down what we pay for the Rham levy in education as well as debt service. Our debt service number usually stays fairly constant. This year, I noticed 14, 15, I think we're paying 1.5 in debt service for Rham. Next year, it's going up to 1.490 million, so we're looking at an $85,000 increase in debt service. Now, understand, it's a refinancing because taking place, I don't know if that's in that number to begin with, and I don't understand why not going to increase the debt service to I think the total debt service increase was $173,000 for the Rham budget. When you look at the increase in principal and decrease in interest. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, unless anyone else would like to address the board this time, are you comfortable? Would you like to address it?
I'm hoping you can hear me from here because the lockdown.
Sure, please just, if you can just say your name and your time.
I'm Peggy Donald from Andover, and when I'm going through the budget plan line by line, two things struck me in particular, and there was a decrease in many of the line items, both for the art department, supplies, and a lot of, I don't want to get really picky, but a lot of small items, and also for the social studies department in supplies and in, thank you, and in other small things, but it added up. And I wondered in particular why those two departments were getting so many cuts, especially in supply items. And they're both so necessary for the richer development of the students. I know I attended the meeting, the small meeting in Andover last week, and so many art students came to support the art department cuts, and they were also all over their talks. But nobody was there for social studies. That doesn't create the same drama as art students, but they are getting a lot of hits as well. And, students might not realize until they're a little bit older the importance of social studies. The board knows this time in our history is a rather important subject to know. And so I'd like to speak to the support of the social studies department as well. So I didn't know if there was a bigger picture that I was missing. And social studies was being made up for in some other manner. And some other media was taking the place of their books and their general supplies. Something I wasn't aware of. So since I have students in the schools anymore, so I was thinking you could just speak to that for a moment. Thank you.
Thank you. I know you're trying to say if you would like to address the board, but I will have to close the meeting and we're going to our public meeting, which will be the public hearing, of course, from. So if anybody else would like to address the board at this time, if not, then I will go ahead and declare the meeting closed. And let me see, just reading my notes.